I'm Emily Chang, and this is The Circuit. Governor Gavin Newsom has spent over 2 decades climbing California's political ladder. Then came 2025, the year he became the Democratic Party's most prominent and combative voice against President Trump. You have posted videos of the president as a pig, a hamburger. You've dressed him like Marie Antoinette, told him to take dementia meds. You're wincing a little.
I know, it's unbecoming. They should wash my mouth out with soap.
The clock is ticking on Governor Newsom's final year in office. I spent 3 days with the governor and his wife, Jennifer Siebel Newsom, at their home in Marin County and the governor's office in Sacramento. You can hear my conversation with her in another episode of the Circuit Pod. In this interview, I talked to Governor Newsom about fighting the Trump administration on multiple fronts, challenging tech giants on AI regulation as their leaders shift to the right, and facing the question that looms over everything else. Will he run for president? Hello.
How are you?
It's good to see you again.
Interview? Are we being interviewed?
You know what?
Is this part of it?
It's the always on era. There's always a hot mic around.
Is there? All right. I mean, you have like 50 books in you. I mean, you have like, it would actually really be interesting to sort of publish your interviews in a thoughtful way and interesting and strategic way.
There have been a lot of them. I mean, it's remarkable. Like, I go back to like my first interview with Elon Musk.
Right.
When they were launching the Model S, and how he was just, no one thought he could do Tesla at all.
I mean, he even went on my current TV show. We drove into the studio. Elon was like touching the screen going, how's this music thing work? And he was the old Elon.
So, I mean, you've been busy.
Have I? Yeah.
Clapping back.
A lot of clapping back. I'm on the other side of a lot of this.
Yeah.
I can't take it anymore. I can't take the David Sachs of the world. Can't take the selling
and these
out.
are people that you
I know all
know
these guys.
well personally.
Yeah, I mean, last email from him is, thanks for the wine. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I found literally actually just randomly saw that the other day. I'm like, geez, that's the last time we connected.
Well, it's been fun to see you in the first Partner in Action. How do you guys decide when to team up?
She decides.
That's what I was wondering. I was like, who puts the hammer down when the hammer comes down?
Trust me, she'll decide. Because every time I try to get her to do something, she's like, nah, that one's for you. So she's got to feel it, and then I definitely understand it. No, well, if I'm dabbling in things, she'll notice I'm dabbling, and that I need to dive. You know, don't dip your toe in the water. You got to go swim. So things like regenerative ag, farm to school, where I put a few bucks up for grants. We did some pilots. I had an event. She goes, no, we don't do pilots. We don't do events. We have a multi-year strategy. And every year you're going to commit to this in the budget. This was not one-off. It's that kind of thing where she's directed the ship of state, so to speak.
All right, well, let's talk about swimming.
All right.
You have a history of taking up positions that carry a lot of political risk. Same-sex marriage, environmental regulation, Prop 50, trolling Trump. You're out there experimenting.
Yeah.
What is driving you right now? Is it courage? Is it ambition? Or is it outrage?
Well, with the two driving forces of life, inspiration and desperation. Been inspired by a lot of our politicians and by our politics in the past. I'm now on the other side of maybe feeling a little more desperate about the moment we're living in and how situational it's become, how short-term it's become. I feel like, Trump's in the process of liquidating the core values of our country, those enduring values, those historic values of our founding fathers for 249 years, things I've taken for granted. I see him doing that with the economy. I see him doing that with companies, the crony capitalism, the state capitalism that has entered into our politics to a degree that I've never experienced, to a scale and scope in the open, the blatant corruption that is occurring on an hourly, not just daily basis. And it sickens me in my core. As an American, as a father, as a husband, as a guy who grew up in the Bay Area, and to watch some of my old friends participate in that, I need to be more accountable to this moment, and that's expressed in all of the above. And a desire to be more iterative, to be more entrepreneurial in my mindset, to try new things, to take risks, arrows in the back, okay, fine, but a willingness to just be more accountable.
When the cameras are off and the phones are down, what's it like in the Newsom household with Gavin and Jen?
Well, the phones are rarely down, so let's establish a baseline of understanding, particularly when you got 4 kids taking the phone in the house, even if you took their phones, and Jen and I are ourselves. But look, it's a little bit chaotic, sometimes chaotic, So there's some order to the chaos. More often than not, there's no order to it. But look, every night orders up a different challenge. That is fatherhood, life. You get mugged by reality every single night as you're sitting there washing the dishes, whether you want to or not. Doesn't matter if it's 11 or 12 in the morning, get them done. You're sitting there dealing with, this morning it was an earache, which my little guy Dutch screaming and yelling on the, and then I got him in the bath, and then he's on the bathroom floor, and then getting him to school. Another one that I took his phone 3 days ago, hadn't given it back. So I did what a lot of folks do, and that is backed off on my commitment not to give it back, just to situationally get out of the house to come up and see you and to get him to school. So that's life, and that's what we all deal with. And
it's called bribery, I think.
Well, that is. Yeah, that's just talk about short-termism. He's preaching one thing, he's practicing another. But yeah, it's just everybody understands that, and you're not immune in politics. Quite the contrary. The challenge is politics. You're trying to keep that away as much as you can from the kids in those conversations. And that's the hardest part. If there's anything, for Jen and I really, kids from political families, a lot of them struggle. And we think about that a lot. And what's our example? And are we being good parents? And are we doing the right thing? Because at the end of the day, our legacy is not defined by some Senate bill I passed that no human being remembers even 6 months later, let alone 16 years later, and you're sitting there regretting the things you should have put more time and energy into, and that's your kids. So that's the hardest part of this job, is doing that job.
How do your children handle the pressures of living in the house with the governor, and how does that weigh on you?
Differently. Some days they're happy about it. Hey, Dad, so-and-so came up to me and they were really nice. Other days, I can't believe you did this to me. Like actual language. How can you do this to me? When is this over? And they're like, I'm wearing a countdown clock now. They're like, it's 13 more months. 12. No, it's 12. And they're debating. I'm like, wow, you guys really seem to know a lot. They're like, we can't wait. It's terrible. You're not doing something else, are you? My friend said you are. You can't do that. I'm like, wow. I mean, it's you don't fully appreciate it until those moments where you're like, wait, you absorb more of this than I even understood. Look, we had to, it has been public, we had to take one of our kids out of school. And homeschool her. And I'll never forget, never, ever, ever, ever forget, in some respect forgive, myself sitting there in our living room where we did an 8th grade graduation, because she didn't experience her 8th grade graduation. And we did it in our living room. And she read a speech, and she was so proud. And she came up afterwards, and she said, Dad, she was staring at me the whole time. There was 5 people in the audience, and we did a formal thing. And she had her back up, and she had her head up, and she never said, and she read it perfectly. And she said, you told me to kind of look over your head, and I was looking over your head just slightly. And I said, I thought you were looking in my eyes. And she was so proud. I was like so proud, and I got emotional. I'm like, but she wasn't able to do that in front of her friends and classmates. That's politics. And that's stuff you don't get back. And so those are the sacrifice. Everyone has sacrifice. Look, we've had privileges beyond imagination. I'm not naive and deeply situationally aware, but there is that side of it. And that's on us. That's on me. And I got to make up for that.
Well, speaking of, obviously you've been doing this podcast, interviewing people on the other side. You've talked about how your son was so excited for you to meet Charlie Kirk, wanted you to meet Andrew Tate even more. And the conventional wisdom is that these figures are attractive to young men who feel left behind or left out. One wouldn't think that that's your son.
Yeah.
How did you talk through that with him, and what did you learn?
Yeah, he was dabbling in all that. He did. And this was YouTube. I mean, he didn't have a device at the time. It was the school device. It was his homework device, and all of a sudden he's just extending a little more time on it, and he's telling me, Dad, I heard Andrew Tate's coming to the United States. He's in Florida. You should meet with him. He's innocent. I'm like, how the hell do you know Andrew Tate? And you don't know what you're talking about. And then I got into it. He goes, yes, he's innocent. I'm like, what are you watching? And a few days later, I said, hey, I'm doing this podcast. He says, yeah, when are you doing the podcast? I said, finally, I'm doing this guy, Charlie Kirk. He goes, Charlie Kirk, I need to meet with him. And I said, you don't know. He didn't know his politics. He just sees them online, part of the algorithm. He's talking to me about some guy, Peterson, up in Canada. And obviously Rogan and some others. I'm like, what are you watching? He said, it all came from, Fortnite Fridays and there's an ad for something, young men, get in shape. And then all of a sudden it's Hustlers University. Dad, I need $35. I'm like, what's Hustlers University? It's crypto, get rich quick. And, come on, Dad, I need my own account. Like, wow. And so it sort of monitored a consciousness for me that I need to monitor. This, again, is a school device for homework, not just a personal device. And that device around algorithms, how that is impacting kids. And of course, that comes from COVID, where he was online more. Look, we're all complicit to the world we're living in. Society becomes how we behave. That's a deeper conversation. But that conversation is one we're all having in this country, particularly with young men and boys. And so he's not a fan of these people. He was just familiar with these people. And I was not as familiar with how they are all familiar in his age cohort, young men, with these same people, and how it shapes our politics in more ways than I think most of us understand.
Well, speaking of the regulation of it, you signed a series of bills setting first in the nation rules on chatbots, deepfakes, AI transparency. Yeah. How do you plan to regulate AI when it means taking on the most powerful people in your state and the president's trying to stop it?
Well, we've been doing it. California's been a leader for decades. Look, world we invented now is competing against us. I'm mindful of the competitive landscape as it relates to the innovation, these tools of technology that are continuing to spread their influence and investments all around the globe, not just across the United States. And so I'm mindful of a competitive relationship to headquartered companies and so much of that innovation coming here and how we regulate it. At the same time, I'm mindful of our responsibility. The world we invented now, we also have a responsibility to regulate truth and trust, promise and peril, and how you find that balance where you maintain the innovation and entrepreneurial spirit. At the same time, you create some rules for the road in the absence of federal leadership. So the approach we've taken is one been hand in glove with the prior administration, the Biden administration, where I did the first executive order on AI for frontier models in the nation. In partnership with the Biden administration, we announced with President Biden when he was here in San Francisco, his executive order. We were there together that day, only to see that thrown out by the current administration and any premise or belief in having any rules for the road being now dismissed by the current administration, only reinforcing the need to do more. And that's what we did with SB 53, the first large-scale frontier model regulatory framework in the country. We've done that, though, on privacy in the past. We've done that on data protections in the past. We led on watermarking. We led on robocalls. We led on deep fakes. We led on revenge porn. We continue to lead, but we recognize with humility we have a lot more work to do. So it's a constant spirit of iteration, sort of testing the boundaries. Sometimes we go too far. 1047 was a bill that I felt went too far that would stifle innovation around AI. I vetoed that, but I took responsibility to get Fei-Fei Li and Stanford, Berkeley, MIT, others, Carnegie together, did a white paper with some of the world's leading experts. And that created the conditions for SB 53, which we signed, which I think now is a model, I believe, for the nation. But it's a model today. It may not be in 6 months. The world's radically changing. So that's our approach. Age-gating conversations we're having social media. California's led in that as it relates to even doing warning labels, which I signed a bill for social media warning labels. We've done it, though, in more prescriptive ways than just saying, here's the age and you can't access it. We talk about how algorithms are used and how we could protect children as it relates to those algorithms. And so it's challenging. We're litigated all the time. These guys say one thing, then their lobbyists do another. So it's a constant back and forth. And so there's no easy answer to your question. It's just, again, a process of responsibility, engagement, but willingness to lean in and take lead.
Let's talk about that. There has been a clear shift to the right among tech leaders in Silicon Valley. Tech donors who once supported Democrats are now whispering in the president's ear. Your wife thinks some of these folks have lost their way.
She has strong opinions.
Is it that, or did the Democratic Party drive them away?
Yeah, I know that they say it's the Democrat. I haven't changed, and your party's changed. Come on. I think a lot of it's situational. A lot of it's just, it's the fiduciary inside. If I'm giving them grace, it's the fiduciary. That I have a responsibility to my shareholders. And so, yes, we will participate. We have to be pragmatic about the cards that have been dealt. If I'm being charitable, that's the approach I take. Jen, a little less charitable, and in some cases, very accurate. In other cases, I give a little more grace. I think the vast majority will, quote unquote, come back. I don't think they've gone that far. is perceived. I think a lot that have already were there. And you know better than I, because you know these people. They were on that libertarian spectrum a decade ago. And they kind of came out a little bit more, but they were always in that space. And so there are a few exceptions that surprise me, but only a handful. The vast majority I think, are there. But look, there's two worlds, and they're conflated often. It's the sort of that crypto world where I think there was a big bleed. And then more of the VC tech world that more broadly defined, where I think there's more of a situational relationship to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Some with a little more indulgent than I would like to see, because I think they're selling out and they don't need to. Others that, sadly, I get the sort of corporate side of their decision-making, sadly.
Well, Mark Benioff, longtime friend of yours, godfather of one of your children.
Yeah, my oldest.
Called on President Trump to send the National Guard to San Francisco, then backtracked.
Yeah, good.
Did you have words with him?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, how do you win Silicon Valley back?
Mark's one of those I don't think is, look, Mark's, you're talking to the wrong guy, because I have no objectivity. I can't even feign trying to be objective about Mark and Lynn and his mom. I love his mom. I love his family. I've just known them for decades. So I just have a different baseline of appreciation and respect for him and the family. So I just can't, I'm just not going to take a shot. But, look, you and I are interviewing today when Justice Breyer just adjudicated in favor of California, saying that Donald Trump does not have the right to federalize the National Guard, and says they need to be put back under my command.
But did you talk to him about it?
I mean, it's pretty clear that the point of view is, that ran complete contrast to not only the litigation that I just referenced, but our entire value proposition. So yeah, of course I did. And he hardly was surprised by my position. Pretty well, it's out there. So we just have a different point of view, and I'm glad his point of view circled right back to ours, and I'm glad it didn't happen. Yeah, it was unfortunate. I don't think it was helpful to him, certainly, and to the brand, ultimately, but I'm glad he made the decision he ultimately made. So, again, some grace in that respect. But yeah, I'd rather, those are private conversations, and publicly my positions are as clear or more clear than probably most, if not all, other elected Democrats in the country on these issues.
All right, well, let's talk about the clarity there. You have posted videos of the president as a pig, a hamburger. You've dressed him like Marie Antoinette, told him to take dementia meds. You're wincing a little.
I know, it's unbecoming. I should wash my mouth out with soap.
So if this is the future of American politics and both sides leave the high road behind, does this road lead somewhere better or worse?
Well, I'm not trying to win an argument while these guys are consolidating power. I'm not an idiot. And they play us for fools. We got to be accountable at this moment. These guys are rolling back the last half century, maybe the last century. They're trying to pave over the old cow path. LGBTQ rights, issues of voting rights, civil rights, women's rights, censoring historic facts, rewriting history, gag rules, boardrooms, not just classrooms, going after institutions that cultivate individual thinking. And by the way, not just individual thinking, independent thinking. That's what universities and law firms, that's what institutions like the Smithsonian represent. This is serious. And what I seriously am trying to do, and I wince at that, is that's all in reaction to. It's the mirror that I'm putting up on Trump and Trumpism. He's unhinged. Look at what he puts out on a nightly basis. He had a big rally in Pennsylvania talking about affordability. If you watched it, he said it continued to maintain it's somehow a con job and a hoax, but he put out a true social. Read it. It's madness that can't be normalized. So what did I do? I put out the mirror to that tweet. That's just the latest example. You didn't reference it. It's the latest example to showcase the absurdity of it. This is not normal to dress up as the Pope. This is not normal to cosplay and dress up. This is not normal to act like a child when you are a man and the leader of the free world. And so we started to change our social media and used a little humor and put that mirror up. I created a Patriot site. You can go on the Patriot site.
I noticed the knee pads were sold out.
They're sold out, just like, again, the law firms and universities have sold out, just like the supine Congress is sold out, just like on the shadow docket, the Supreme Court sells out on a daily basis, saying it's okay to racially profile people in the United States of America because of your skin color, where you congregate, not just on the basis of how you speak. That's happening in America today. These guys are not screwing around. They're ruthless. And so we have to push back. And so, yeah, our comms has shifted because I'm starting to understand the nature of attention. This guy floods the zone. He dominates the narrative. Illusion rules. The narrative is what matters, not facts. And so we've got to fight with fire. And so my approach is different, and it's changed, and it has shifted. And so those examples are reflections on what Trump has said or done. And the question is, why the hell weren't people asking him about his behavior all this time on Fox, on One American News, on Newsmax? Where the hell was the Wall Street Journal for a year? Said nothing about this kind of behavior. And now they're waking up to it because I put a lens to it, and they seem a little offended that a Democrat is doing the same.
You've warned about the end of the republic. Is it hyperbolic to talk about civil war, or is that a real threat?
Well, the civil war is a different point, but the end of the republic as we know it, I don't think it is. You saw what Orban did in Hungary in a matter of years, few years. Seen the same thing in Egypt. You've seen it around the world. Go after the media. You go after universities. Again, you go after any institution. Look at the extortion racket he's running. Try to go after the UC system. That's the conveyor belt for talent. Everyone's like, why is it happening in California? Fusion and quantum, robotics. Why is advanced nuclear? Why is space dominating in this state? Obviously AI. It's because the relationship to research and development. 18% of the world's R&D here in California. Just 22% of the world's R&D in China. California, 18%. You talk about world's leading research and development. That's in partnership with part of the ecosystem that is partnered with our institutions of higher learning and Sandia Labs, Lawrence Livermore Labs, Lawrence Berkeley Labs, and all these remarkable institutions built up in and around that academic setting. And obviously the mashup between resources and resourceful mindsets, immigration, getting the first round job choices, the best and the brightest around the world to come. All those things are being destroyed in real time by Donald Trump. And we can go through the tariff policies. We can go through the cuts to NIH and NSF. We can go to the assault on science and what RFK is doing, but what Trump is doing. We can go to the attack on the universities, the $1 billion extortion he wants from UCLA, what he did to Columbia and other universities, what he's doing to that ecosystem as it relates to H-1B visas. I mean, come on, Silicon Valley, wake up on that. Why aren't you being more aggressive on that? $100,000 tithings going after international students. You and I are old enough to remember the day everyone was sitting there waxing on, especially the guys now working for him, waxing on about how we needed to stamp that visa on the backs of every graduate from UC and from Stanford University. And here they are complicit, selling out, getting their piece of the whole deal.
But
in this raw deal that's happening.
Civil war is something that even my own kids have asked about. You know?
I hope not. Look, divorce is not an option, and we're going to have to define the terms of the future. And we're not there. Everyone wants to be loved. Everyone needs to be loved. Everyone wants to, I say this all the time, be protected, connected to something bigger than themselves, respected. It's not about talking down or past people. I don't like that. That's why I had Charlie Kirk and Bannon and Newt Gingrich and Sean Spicer and so many Republicans on my podcast. I'm not trying to spar with people, but when Trump attacks and belittles vulnerable communities, women and girls, talks down to people, mocks people with disabilities, I'm going to stand up for them. When he attacks the rule of law, when he tries to assert that it's the law of the jungle, this notion that it's the rule of Don, I'm going to push back in that respect, but I have total respect for people I disagree with. So civil war, we're going to be fine. But we've got to preserve this country. And as we move into the 250th anniversary of our founding fathers, I think we're at risk of becoming unrecognizable if we don't push back.
All right. You can dodge reporters, but you can't dodge your kids. What do you say to your kids when they ask you if you're going to run for president?
I have no idea. I tell them that. I say it's circumstantial. Moment has to, you have to be worthy. You have to have a big enough why. You've got to be able to meet the moment and express yourself in a way to that moment. And more broadly, it's not just a rhetorical frame, but you have to represent something at that moment. And who knows? I just don't know.
But you said you'd be lying if you weren't.
I said I was lying if it wasn't a passing thought, and that's all I said. And then people ran with these headlines, which I get to. It's where people lie. But I'm not good at it, so I'm not doing it. And the reason everyone around me was upset is because they said, well, every time you sit down, now they're going to have this question, and it does get in the way of everything else. I said that. Look, Prop 50 was about 2025. We don't have 2028 if we weren't successful in 2025. Nothing matters more than a system of checks and balances, not on paper, but in practice. And this notion of co-equal branches of government doesn't take much of an historian to know these are the principles of our founding fathers, the best of Roman Republic, Greek democracy. And that means we need a new Speaker of the House, or a Speaker of the House, or someone that can at least speak on behalf of the House. And that sure as hell isn't Speaker Johnson. And so everything is about setting the table to 2026 in the midterms, period, full stop. The guy on the white horse come save the day in 2028 is a sideshow and not a particularly productive one at this stage.
Well, so your governorship ends in 2027. You won't have a big state behind you. So what's the next battle? Where do you and Jen, where do you go next? Are you going to go to other states and help in the midterms?
Disneyland? I don't know. I mean, I know they've been on a banning binge. They want to ban Disneyland too, not just Bud Light. We can get to that. Cancel culture, really? Okay. Old enough to remember Kaepernick and the Dixie Chicks. Anyway, sorry, that was an aside. I had a debate with someone about cancel culture the other day. I said, Crackleberry? They said, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm just going through the list of the latest assaults to be canceled. But no, we'll see what happens. I honestly don't know. This has been, you talk about an interesting 6 years. Only thing we haven't had is what you and I, where we live in the Bay Area, expected we would have had a long time ago. I won't even use the E word.
Oh, gosh.
Thank you.
I can't believe you brought that up because
well,
there was one a mile from my house.
And I'm deeply mindful. And I just was having a meeting with my staff about our preparedness posture and looking at next year's budget in relationship to the reality of Mother Nature.
And what if somebody retaliates and doesn't give us disaster aid?
Imagine that. See, no one would do that because that would be un-American. No one would ever play politics with disaster relief, would they?
Well, let's talk about California. I live in California. I love California, but I know we have our issues. Yep. People look at California and see a massive deficit, a homelessness crisis, the crushing cost of living, families and businesses leaving. They say, I don't want that. What do you say to them?
Well, first of all, 108,000 new residents last year, 105,000 the year prior, 49,000 the year prior to that, so we have to update the talking points on that. We have more Fortune 500 companies than we've ever had in 20 years. By the way, means you got to update the talking points on headquartered companies and businesses. 3.1 million jobs since I started, so we need to update that. As it relates to homelessness, California outperformed 40 other states last year. You saw an 18.13% increase in homelessness across the country. You've seen that back-to-back in multiple years. And California's numbers have actually started to stabilize. And in major cities, you've seen those numbers decline, including, by the way, San Francisco. So progress is being made in that place. As it relates to a deficit, you won't see that in my January budget. So you may have news that I'm not privy to. You're going to see significant revenue increases that are close to record-breaking and reserves that will reflect that in investments in education, the likes of which we've never seen in California's history. So I just think the facts contradict a lot of that. There's been an obsession with focusing on what's wrong with California. I understand that. I'm not naive about cost of living and housing going back 3, 4, 5 decades. But nor am I naive about our approach to addressing it. Some of the most significant housing reforms in U.S. history, not just California history, over the last 2 years. Last year was next level in terms of our efforts in that space. I think they're going to pay huge dividends. And I feel like directionally on the issues of affordability, when you do $11 insulin, when you do wage increases for working folks, which is part of the affordability equation, $20 fast food workers, $25 for healthcare workers, when you focus on childcare expansions, of which no other state has done more in subsidies than we have, or creating a brand new grade, pre-K for all, which saves about $18,000 a year for working families. All of that is part of an affordability agenda, and I'll just bookmark that with something meaningful we just did that hasn't gotten a lot of attention, $60 billion in utility rebates through our Cap and Invest program. Most significant investments back to offset the cost of electricity and utility hikes that were part of that Cap and Invest agenda. So our agenda is about delivering solutions to that, addressing some of these systemic issues, but also addressing some of the complete mythology and myth-making that's part of the California derangement syndrome that seems 24/7 in our politics today.
I recently heard you say you support compulsory national service for
Yeah,
young
I do.
Americans.
I do.
As a mom, I need to know more about this. Is this for boys and girls? What kind of service?
Yeah.
What kind of service would you like to see your own
Well,
kids
it goes to your damning but honest statement about your kid who said something about a civil war that breaks my heart. I mean, children should not be talking like that. And shared experiences. We used to have them. Our parents and grandparents, they had them through struggle and conflict, war. But that national service united people. It wasn't about Democrats, Republicans, urban, rural. It was about us coming together. It was about understanding who we are, many parts, one body. And I think this notion of service is really important. We have the largest service corps in the United States of America. It's a point of pride. I've invested a tremendous amount of time and energy. An incredible young man, Josh Friday, has been running this. I'm a Sarge Shriver Democrat. We're larger than the Peace Corps now. And I do think it should be compulsory. I do think we would do well 1-2 years of service that can come in many forms and manifestations. Across the spectrum, consider just contributions in your community, volunteering at a senior center, volunteering for mentoring young people, mentoring young men in particular. We have a crisis of men and boys, and we've been trying to address that as aggressively as any other state. And so I just think we have to hit that head on. I don't know anything that would be more powerful and potent than sharing experiences at scale for a generation that feels more isolated, more alone, more disconnected, more anxious. And I just think it's powerful, and we've seen that example in our efforts. One final example that I think is important. I thought, and this was a modest point of distinction I had with the Biden administration, border issues, that was to me, just we failed on the border, and strong opinions about that. Other area where I had marginal opinions, and I'm not looking to create a differentiation here, was on student loans. I didn't understand why we were giving that all away. In California, our approach is very different. 450 hours of service, and we take care of $10,000 of your college. It's one of our college core programs. But we want 450 hours of service. It's been a game changer. These kids say, I'll do more. Can I do it again? Not just for the money, but for the experience, for the relationships. And it's not just the relationships they form between individuals, relationships to issues, to parts of the state and communities that they otherwise never understood. I just think that's powerful. And so it's about opportunity and responsibility. It's about patriotism in the respect that it's not a political frame. It's about something that frames us to something larger than ourselves.
I have heard you say a few times now, people don't know who you really are. I've heard you express frustration about this.
Yeah.
How do you think...
Everyone says that, right?
How do you think you're perceived, and
I know
why...
I'm perceived. You ever gone online?
Why should people trust you?
Trust me. I mean, I am who I am, and I've been an open book for decades, and people that know me best have elected me to many offices. Parking and traffic commissioner, perhaps the great peak of my public service experience, and I went forward and ran on many ballots as a county supervisor, as a mayor on multiple occasions, a lieutenant governor on multiple occasions. There was an effort to recall me in the last 3 elections. We won by margins of 20+%. So, I mean, that issue, I think, has been substantively addressed for those that chronicle me literally and figuratively, that know me best in this state and certainly in the Bay Area. But as it relates to just the perceptions of me, I'm taking those on squarely in a book, honestly, because I just couldn't take it anymore. I was debating with friends, like, you don't even know me, they're my friends. Yeah, people wouldn't believe you're doing dishes. I mean, I literally debate that.
You do dishes.
They think the governor has a chef or something, that somehow someone magic. You think my kids do them? Please, okay? That I'm even battling basic things that are just so ridiculous. And so I'm writing about all that, warts and all, and it's coming out, and it's Young Man in a Hurry, which is a frame of reference to an Economist article that was kind of taking a shot at me. I don't think there's a political book that's been out there that's this honest, and I'm putting it out there. And it's my own reflection of myself in relationship to a life of understanding and my own relationship to the moment, to being a father, to a husband, to, just being a better person.
You have defined yourself in opposition to President Trump, but that's not a vision. What is your vision?
In terms of the substantive things we've done, I put out an economic and workforce development vision that had over 10,000 people. It was a 3-year process that we just rolled out It's called Regions Rising Together, 13 economic and workforce development plans for the state. State's not one economy, it's intersections of multiple economies.
But is there a way to sum it up?
We rolled it out in detail in 7 different events, and it paints that positive alternative. A compelling economic vision that's worker-centered, this notion of growth and inclusion. So all that is in relationship to the day job and the work we do every single day and the values that are present in believing that it's wrong that 20 states have $7.25 minimum wage. Think about that. It's unconscionable. And that's why we did $20 and $25. And, I saw a lot of segments on this network and others attacking that. And with all due respect, $20 is barely making ends meet. And, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact we've doubled the earned income tax credit. Proud of the fact we were the first state to do baby bonds, $1.9 billion, 3.4 million people, to create a wealth consciousness and a financial literacy relationship, not just focus on income. And the work we've done on childcare, on healthcare, universal healthcare in this state, 6.4%, uninsured versus Texas, 16.7%. The fact that we have a progressive tax system, not a regressive tax system, like Texas and Florida, that tax their poorest residents and wage earners more than we do our richest. Talk about taxes. Those are high tax states by definition. 16 states taxing their lowest wage workers more than our high wage workers. Who's the high tax state? I'm proud of that alternate approach. I'm proud of what we did on housing over the last few years. And again, the fruits of that will be born over the course of the next few years. Proud of the fact that I'm the first governor to commit to dealing with homelessness and address the issue of mental health at scale. And we're finally seeing some real progress after, again, decades and decades of the state being nowhere to be found on those issues. And don't get me started on low carbon green growth and the work we're doing in that space. And I'm very proud of this state, and you'll see it reflected in a budget that reflects the resilience of this state, the dynamism of this state, and the fact that we're no longer the 6th largest economy, we're the 4th. Eat your heart out, Germany. Well, maybe not. India's going to probably take us over.
All right. Well, I think we all have a book to read now, right?
Yeah, well, now that you bought 500 copies for everyone, they can all just throw it out and, go.
Now I'm intrigued.
But it's politicians and books. I would, that's where you roll your eyes. But this is different. I'm telling you. I know everyone says that, but I mean it. I'm really proud of it. It's not a book of someone with any ambition to seek another office. Let's just leave it at that.
All right. Well, I think we're going to go watch you film some social media. I need to see this strat in action.
We've been very aggressive.
Indeed.
Yeah, we've been aggressive.
But you said you have a kill switch. It seems like
I haven't been using it much. So when I do, you'll see the apology. We're back to iteration. But there's no doubt the line will be crossed, and I'll have to buck up and take responsibility.
But not yet.
There's been one thing that I pulled back. One. And then there's plenty on the edge.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Circuit. You can check out the full episode to see Governor Newsom and his wife, Jennifer Siebel Newsom, and hear their take on everything from the billionaire tax to bringing tech leaders back on side to family life. I'm Emily Chang. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Emily Chang TV. You can watch new episodes of The Circuit on Bloomberg Television, on YouTube, or on demand by downloading the Bloomberg app to your smart TV. And check out our other Bloomberg podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your shows. And please let us know what you think by leaving a review. We love hearing from you. I'm your host and executive producer. Our senior producer is Lauren Ellis. Our writer is Rob Maraskin. Our editor is Gramercy Post. Thanks for listening.